Hello, my name is Rachel Hutton from Port of Leith Housing Association. The book I am recommending is Blood Child, which is written by Octavia Butler, a black science fiction author that most of you have probably never heard of. I first came across her in the 1990s when I read her book Survivor, and I've been reading some of her books ever since. This is an anthology of short stories and a couple of essays about writing. The thing I love about Octavia Butler and these stories is that they are so wide-ranging. Everything from what happens after the alien invasion to a 1984 short story that talks about what happens when everybody loses the ability to communicate, either verbally or to read or to communicate in any way, sense or form, and how that hits society and how people behave. There's also stuff in here about genetics, about politics. God turns up having a conversation with a black female author, science fiction writer, saying, what kind of utopia are you going to come up with? And that's a really interesting conversation as well. So it is very wide-ranging. I would recommend it rather than some of her novels because it's a nice introduction to science fiction and it's a lovely introduction to Octavia Butler. Now, the book that I'm going to read after Blood Child is a book called Kindred, which I've heard some really great things about. Kindred is about an African-American woman who, for some strange reason, catapults back into time, to the time of slavery, to meet her relatives, the black ones and the white ones. So you can imagine that is quite a turbulent story. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I may need a bit of cheering up afterwards, but it's going to be interesting. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, my name's Eve and I do communications here at Port of Leith Housing Association. So the book that I want to highlight this month is this one. It is Ordinary People by Diana Evans, a high energy book set in London to the soundtrack of John Legend, and it's about two 30-something couples and what's going on in their lives. And it has an interesting and unexpected hint of gothic horror in its pages, which is why I think I love it so much. It really does take you by surprise. Next on my reading list for October is Elizabeth Acevedo's With the Fire on High. So you might know Elizabeth Acevedo as a poet, but this is a work of fiction about 17-year-old Imani, who is an aspiring chef, and she really gets food. So this is quite an exciting one, and I think a really good one for the cold autumn months.
Hello, my name is Ngeme Ntuli. I'm the Director of Group Finance and Business Support at Port of Leith Housing Association. And I'm very excited to be celebrating with you Black History Month. I'm going to go down memory lane and tell you a story that the elders in my family used to tell us around a fire. This is the story of the Cunning Hare. Once there was a hare who wanted to cross to the other side of the river where there were lots of good things to eat. When hare reached the river bank, there was a huge crocodile in the water. Hare was terrified of being eaten by crocodile. Our cunning little hare stood by the river bank, deep in thought. Eventually he piped up, "You crocodiles are nowhere near as many as us hares." And crocodile looked at him and replied, "There are many more of us, of course, than all the hares in the world." Next, hare challenged the crocodile with a twinkle in his eye. "Well, come on then, if there are lots of you, so I can count you." Crocodile quickly rounded up all his relatives. There were so many crocodiles that they reached from one side of the river to the other. Hare walked on top of all the crocodiles' backs, counting as he went along. 1, 2, 3. He kept on counting and skipping until he crossed the whole river on the backs of those crocodiles. On the other side of the river, Hare quickly took off as fast as his legs could carry him, laughing all the way. Now, I used to find this story very funny when I was a child, and I know you're struggling to imagine me as a child. I think I do the same. Anyway, thank you.
Hi, my name's Emmanuelle. I'm an employability officer at Port of Leith Housing Association, and today I want to talk about one book that I really enjoyed reading recently, and it's called Swing Time by Zadie Smith. I love dance myself, and that's one of the things that drew the characters together at the beginning. They meet in a dance class as children, so I love that. And also there's a small autobiographical element to the story, because I love all Zadie Smith books, but this one in particular is set in North London, and I think that's where she grew up, and she also grew up, like the main character, to a white dad and a black mum, so that made it interesting for me, because I like her, and I've read quite a lot of her books. Also, it takes place in different locations, partly so in North London, but also in New York and in West Africa. And she's so good at describing people and places. You feel like you're really there. It's great. I really recommend it. The other one, or the next one on my list, is one I'm going to read with my daughter, and it's called Little Leaders. And it's about women from around the world who have discovered things, invented things, or been high achievers in their field, music or architecture or science or math. It's by Vashti Harrison, and it's beautifully illustrated, and we've had a quick look at it, but you can dip in and out because it's one character per page, so it's a really good one. Gift maybe, if you've got kids or you've got a child to buy a present for. So that's me. I hope you enjoy them. Bye.
I'm Heather Kitesley, and I'm the Chief Executive at Port of Leith Housing Association. I recently watched The School That Tried to End Racism on Channel 4. There were some really great exercises that did with the school children that made me really think about what it means to be white and the unearned privilege that I have because of that. I learned a lot from it, and I wish that I had learned these things earlier in life, things that I'd taken for granted. I'm currently reading the book White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by Robin J. Diangelo. I'm a few chapters in so far, and I'm taking my time to read it because it's been very thought-provoking for me. In particular, it has given me a deeper understanding about systemic racism and why the topic is so difficult for white people to discuss without becoming defensive, hostile, or dismissive.
Hi everybody, I've got a recommendation as part of the PoLHA Against Racism resource package. I've just watched a really good TED talk by a chap called Baratunde Thurston. He almost comes across like a stand-up comedian actually. It's very irreverent but very informative, the TED talk he does. It's only 16 minutes long. It's very American, that's a word of warning, but specifically it's around his experiences as a black man living in the United States. And he talks about how there's been a kind of lots and lots of incidents over the last couple of years of black people being pulled over by the police and black people being having the police called on them by white people. It's interesting because it goes back to 2018 and before events of this year. it's quite prophetic in a lot of ways, and it's interesting to see. He does a really good thing where he has the audience laughing and whooping and really getting into it, a bit like a comedy show, and then he suddenly changes tack and he gives some really quite dark information, and you can just feel the atmosphere in the room completely changing. Like I say, for a 16-minute TED Talk, I learned a lot, and hopefully you will as well. But I could really recommend it if you're looking for something to give you a little bit more information. So hope you enjoy it. Cheers.